Hello, this is Jackrabbit Journal. Tom Nieman along with Hank McCall, and the Jackrabbits go 1-0 this week against the bye. They are killing it against the bye, Hank. Still unbeaten against those guys. Actually, Jacks had the week off to get ready for the start of the Missouri Valley Conference, and they do that this Saturday at Illinois State. And based on this season so far for the Jackrabbits, what you've seen, what's your confidence level for South Dakota State going into this game?
It's very high, actually, and it should be. They've played good football up to this point. It certainly hasn't been perfect, but I think the big thing that you have to look at, for me, what I'm looking at is the young guys that have stepped up on the defensive side of the ball and how well they have played so early on in the season. They need to have, over this past week, have continued to focus on the little things within their game, getting themselves alignment and assignment, A squared, getting set up and ready to go, and playing the best mistake-free a football that you can, which as a young player, it's difficult too, but so far they have been tremendous.
All right, and they're going to have to be good. Illinois State is 3-0 right now. The Redbirds have played 3 FCS teams, not great ones, but they're 3-0. They beat Jerry Rice's old school, Mississippi Valley State, 62-0 in the first game of the season. Mississippi Valley, though, is picked to finish 8th in the 10-team Southwestern Athletic Conference this year, so they're not great. But the best team Illinois State has beaten so far is Eastern Illinois. Good team from the Ohio Valley Conference, 2-time defending conference champions there, as a matter of fact. Eastern won a game in the FCS playoffs last year, but Eastern lost quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo to the NFL, and Illinois State spanked Eastern 2 weeks ago, 34-15. Illinois State has a very good middle linebacker named Pat Meehan, who had 11 tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception in that game against Eastern Illinois. He was named the National Player of the Week after that. Illinois State has a quarterback, Hank, named Trey Roberson. He was a transfer from the University of Indiana. Threw for 2 scores against Eastern Illinois. He started 4 games last year at Indiana, had 6 touchdowns against Purdue in 1 game. He was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week in one of those games. And this past Saturday, he threw for 4 touchdowns as Illinois State beat Austin Peay 55-6. So, Illinois State has won 3 games so far by an average of 50-7. And I know it's hard to compare competition right now, but that's pretty impressive. Jack's got to be ready to go in this game.
They do. It's been a nice start to the season for Illinois State, and they've got a good football team. It's a good program, and as you see from the statistics and the history that their quarterback, their starter now has, he's got the tools to get it done at this level, but also at the next level as far as Division I football is concerned. So the Jackrabbits, what do they have on their side? They've had an extra week of preparation, which depends on who you're talking to as to whether or not that's an actual benefit, but it certainly doesn't hurt. They're not having to cram as much information into their brains over these next 5 days that the Redbirds are having to, that's for sure. Whereas the Redbirds, sure, they were able to get some snaps in last Saturday in a nice win at home against Austin Peay. But this is it. It's time to strap them up. Everything that's happened up to this point, the first 3 games for both sides, it doesn't mean anything. Now the Missouri Valley Football Conference is going to be in full swing, and it's time to get after it, folks.
All right, man. Meanwhile, the Jacks are 3-1 overall. They've got 2 wins over some pretty decent FCS teams. Beat Cal Poly at home 44-18, and beat Southern Utah on the road 26-6, and then came back home with that win over Wisconsin Oshkosh 41-3, and that was the big win for John Stiegelmeier, his 114th of his career. That's the most ever for a South Dakota State head football coach. And after he set the record, he said this:
somebody will break the record soon, and they should, because so many good things are coming here and have been created here. But right now we feel pretty good to be part of it.
All right, good point, except I think for that first part about somebody breaking his record. Now, even if Stig retired after this season, he would still say, let's say, have 120 wins if they win 6 more games. Reasonable, right? For another coach to equal that would be 10 wins for 12 straight seasons. Can you see that happening for anybody? Whew.
Tough goings.
That would be tough to do. You could do it with 9 wins for 13 years in a row, but even that would be pretty incredible. For example, North Dakota State has averaged 9.6 wins per season in the last 10 years during their amazing run. So that would be amazing. Even 8 wins a year over a long period of time is asking a lot from one guy in one place. Ralph Ginn, the coach Stig just surpassed, averaged just over 5 wins this season in his career. No SDSU head football coaches averaged more than 7 wins a year during his tenure. The only one that was close was Mike Daly with 41 wins in his 6 seasons. So just saying, I think Stig is going to stay around for a few more years. He's going to put that win total up at 135, 136, 137, something like that, and nobody's going to touch it. You agree with me on this?
I agree with you. It's going to be very
Just
difficult
because
for
it's
anybody.
hard to do, yes.
It is. It's hard to win football games at the college level, let alone Division I FCS in the Missouri Valley, the most difficult conference, the toughest conference that there is at this level. Now, Coach Stig he's been around for a while, around this program for a long time, and he's had a tremendous amount of success, specifically over the last decade. Anybody who would come in, they're going to be hard pressed to match his legacy.
All right. Speaking of records, when we come back, Zach Zenner. He was honored last week for his community service. The story on that, and a look at the incredible numbers that he has put up so far.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Billionauto.com.
Well, Zach Zenner is finishing up one of the most phenomenal football careers ever at South Dakota State University. He has achieved almost superhero status in Brookings. He is tough and smart and kind to other people. Last week, he was named to the Football Coaches Association Good Works team, one of only 22 players in all of college football to earn that honor. Here is Katie Lingle with more on Zenner's good work.
Zach Zenner assumed his trip to Hillcrest Elementary School in Brookings was to give second graders a speech about citizenship. Instead, they were there to give him applause.
Definitely surprised, especially surprised at the whole kind of presentation deal and walking in and you guys are all here. Certainly a surprise, yeah.
Coincidentally, the Jackrabbit running back found out he was named to the AFCA Good Works team for his commitment to serving the community while he was doing just that, taking time out of his busy school and football schedule to speak to children. Now Zach can add this award to his numerous athletic and academic accolades. SDSU head coach John Stiglmeyer says that this service is just another way Zach leads by example.
I think the biggest part of Zach's ability to lead is when he speaks, it's got substance. All right, when he shares with individuals, it isn't flippant. He's put the time into it. He's highly intelligent. He loves people, and so when he talks to people, he's literally investing in them instead of just talking to talk.
Zach was humble about the award, saying his faith guides his call to serve.
My faith, my Christian faith, and my identity in Jesus Christ is really another one of the driving forces behind service. Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate servant to anyone. And really, as a Christian, you're trying to model him as best you can.
No matter the reason for his good works, Coach says Zenner's recognition is important for Jackrabbit football.
By having Zach, you use players that are a picture of what you're supposed to do, and so having Zach get this award is just one more thing we can point to younger players and say, that's a picture of how you're supposed to be. Now, can everybody do that? No, but we can all try to do that. And so we'll use this story about Zach and what he's done in all phases for a long, long time.
Zenner already holds the Missouri Valley Football Conference record for career all-purpose and rushing yards, but the legacy he'll leave off the field might be just as important. With Jackrabbit Journal, I'm Katie Lingle.
Well, Zenner is the second Jackrabbit in consecutive years, by the way, to be named to that Good Works team. Winston Wright was honored last year for the Jackrabbits. Zenner, meanwhile, Hank, has climbed to the top 20 all-time in rushing in the FCS ranks. He averaged 161, has averaged 161 per game through the first 4 games this year, but going to get a lot tougher now that we get into the Valley.
Well, it's certainly not going to get any easier. Of course, we know He's had varied success, actually limited success against the NDSU Bison, which we've talked about that at length. We've talked about the strength of the Missouri Valley Conference as well, so we really don't need to dive back into that. I think what we need to focus on as an SDSU fan base moving forward is just how great Zach Zenner has been over the last few years, and the fact that there's only a few more games that you're going to be able to see that young man run the football, specifically at Coughlin Alumni Stadium. So take advantage of it, folks, because this guy is one in a generation as far as the talent that you're going to see on that field, and he'll be the last All-American that you'll actually see at Coughlin Alumni Stadium, if you ask me. So just enjoy it, appreciate it, and soak it up, folks, because he's been something special.
He averaged 119 a game last year to lead the Missouri Valley. If he does that, he's going to end up in the top 5 all time in the FCS for sure. Well, Zenner is averaging about 24 carries, or is averaging 24 carries per game right now. Do you dare ask him to do more than that, give him the ball more often than that?
Oh, I think you could certainly dare to ask him to do more than that, only because he's proven that he can take more than that. Depending on how a particular game may be going, just what has happened within your particular game plan at that point in any game. If you're at a point where, hey, perhaps we'd be better off giving the football to the best player on our football team a couple more times than what we initially slated to give him the ball, we might have a better chance to win the game. You're going to give him the ball, no doubt about that. So I think 24 or 25 touches a game is perfect for Zach Zenner at this point. Reggie Gandy's still around. You can give him the football, but Mr. Lujan's been pretty dependable so far this year too.
Well, the Jacks are calling about 60% run plays and 40% pass plays right now. If you take out all the quarterback scrambles and such, it's about 60-40. You hear offensive coordinators talk about keeping it balanced, and this was Jack's offensive coordinator Eric Eidsness before the season even started, talking about how to get the right mix of plays called.
That's where my challenge comes in, to make sure that you're doing a good enough job, staying balanced. And I think last year we did a study after 8 games, and we were, of called runs and called passes, we were 25 off. At that time, if you don't include scrambles, just the called play. And if we can stay with that balance and doing that, I think that makes us harder to defend.
Now again, that's before Austin Sumner's injury. The Jacks leaning a little more on the run right now, but why wouldn't you, with an All-American running back there and a young quarterback who's still kind of finding his way. But that young quarterback, Zach Lujan, has filled in admirably since that first game of the year. We'll take you back to Missouri and all the uncertainty to start the season and how the Jackrabbits have responded.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by BillionAuto.com.
Welcome back. The Jackrabbit football team is 3-1 right now, right where they should be, right where they need to be, don't you think?
Absolutely. Went to Missouri, got paid, got beat, but have taken care of business since then, giving up just 27 points total in the 3 wins so far.
All right, let's go back to that Missouri game for a minute to open the season. The Tigers come out on their first drive. They go 65 yards in 3 plays, score in under a minute, and take the lead on a 44-yard pass play. And everybody's thinking this is going to be the longest afternoon, you included?
Yes.
Jacks, though, come back on their first play. Could have been a fumble, should have been a fumble, but Zenner grabs it and goes 75 yards for another incredible Zach Zenner touchdown. Ties the game at 7 apiece.
Things are looking up.
All right, Missouri comes back, and they hook up another long pass play. They hit some big plays in this game. They get a touchdown here later in the first quarter, puts them ahead 21-7, and then disaster for the Jacks on the next possession. Austin Sumner is on a scramble to his left. He tries to turn it upfield, gets a cleat caught in the turf there, breaks some bones in his foot. He is done for the game, out for 6 to 8 weeks, and just kind of a sickening, disappointing feel for everyone involved right there. You thought the season was over.
Yes, it was a face in hands palm to forehead moment. Yes.
Nobody was really 100% sure who the backup was going to be at that point. Turns out it was a sophomore, a JUCO transfer who was really brought into the program as an insurance policy just for this possibility. And Zach Lujan plays very well the rest of the way for the Jacks, completes 21 of 28 passes, and the Jacks stay in the ball game for the most part. SDSU scores to open the second half. It's just a 3-point Missouri lead in the third quarter. But the Tigers then take the ensuing kickoff back 100 yards. They regain control and win it 38-18. But the one positive, or one of the positives at least for the Jackrabbits, they find out that this Lujan kid can play.
There's moments when I was running around with like a chicken with my head cut off. So, second half really calmed down. Game kind of slowed down for me, and line did a great job keeping me upright, and receivers just made some plays.
I really was happy with what Zach was able to do. Lujan, I was happy the way we responded.
Zach has done a good job filling in for the injured Austin Sumner since he went down with that terrible injury. What he's done is his job. He hasn't cost the Jacks any of these ball games, and when his number's been called, he's actually made plays, which is far and above what you would ask for a young man put in that situation. All in all, he's been great, and he needs to just continue to take steps forward week in and week out on the practice field, and then, of course, on Saturdays.
All right, they have won his 3 starts. He's been efficient since taking over. Zenner's cranking out 160 yards a game right now. The Jacks have bounced back with those 3 straight wins, and we will dissect those victories over Cal Poly, Southern Utah, and Wisconsin, Oshkosh, and look at some of the season trends so far coming up next.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by BillionAuto.com.
Welcome back. Well, in any business, you got to have numbers, metrics, ratings, stats, and stuff to see how you're doing and where you stand. So I'm going to give you some of the Jackrabbit stats so far, Hank, and you're going to tell us if they are acceptable or they need to be improved. And these are numbers from the 3 wins so far. The Missouri game is not included in this, but first is points per game allowed. The Jacks held Cal Poly to 18. They held Southern Utah to 6. They held Oshkosh to 3. That is 9 points per game. If you take just the 2 FCS games there, SDSU is allowing 12 points per game. Can you live with that for the next 8 games when they get into the conference play here?
No, I certainly can. No doubt about that. It's going to be difficult to do in the Missouri Valley Conference. But generally speaking, if you're only giving up 12 points a game, all you have to do is score 13 to win. So keep it up, fellas.
If they score more than they give up, that'll be good.
That'll be all right.
All right, to end the 3 wins so far, the Jackrabbits have been 50% on third down conversions. Is that good or could be better?
50% is very good. You talk about being able to convert on third down. If you're able to do that half the time, your offense should consider themselves a successful unit.
Jacks were 42% last year. That was second in the Missouri Valley. There was only one team that was better than 50% all year. All right, in the red zone, inside the 20-yard line, the Jacks have scored touchdowns 9 of 15 times in those 3 wins. That is 60%. Is that good or could be better?
Well, it certainly could be better because it's not 100%, but it's nothing to shake a stick at. If you are converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns more often than not just scores, but 6 or 7 points, that is something you certainly need to hang your hat on and continue to strive for the rest of the year.
Jacks were 61% last year, 60% right now. Eric Eidsness, the offensive coordinator, said the goal is 66%. Somewhere up around that number would be fabulous.
I like that number.
All right, turnover margin. The Jackrabbits are +2 so far in their 3 wins. Now, SDSU led the Missouri Valley last year in interceptions and in turnover margin. Is this an important statistic, or does it get over-exaggerated?
I think it's an important statistic because when you think about it in as simplest terms possible, you're better off taking the ball away from the team you're playing more often than giving it to them, if you ask me. But there are some numbers that could show us that potentially it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot.
The thing that makes me think that is North Dakota State was last in the Missouri Valley last year in turnover margin, and they went undefeated. So that kind of throws out the turnover margin to me. Anyway, finally, in the 3 wins this year, the Jacks have allowed just 4 sacks, Hank, I should say. 2 against Oshkosh, 1 to Cal Poly, and 1 to Southern Utah. You can't get much better than just over 1 per game.
No, you can't. Other than posting that goose egg, which is very difficult to do against the type of athletes that you're facing in front fours and against the caliber football teams you play in the Missouri Valley. The offensive line, as well as the coaching staff, should be very pleased with how the big boys up front have played for the Jackrabbits. Big question mark coming into the season was just how this unit was going to be. I know we knew about all the playmakers, but it was the big hog mollies, the fat guys, as Coach Stig would call them. That was the big question mark. And so far, granted, we're barely 2 steps into the season here. So far, those guys have been great.
Jacks were last in the conference last year as far as giving up more sacks than anybody else, so if they could turn that around, would be wonderful. And yes, remember how the offensive line was going to be such a big question this year. So far, so good. We'll take a look at how those guys have fared and some of the individual standouts so far when we come back.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by BillionAuto.com.
Well, the Jackrabbit football team is 1/3 of the way through the regular season now, Hank, and give me a couple of guys who have impressed you so far, starting with the offense, and you can't say Zach Zenner.
Can't say Zach. So I'm going to go to the wide receiver core.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about Jake Wenicky, redshirt freshman. Young man averaging over 18 yards a catch in this early on here in 2014. He showed tremendous poise for a young wide receiver, similar to his mentor, his position coach, Josh Davis, when he was that age.
12 catches, 2 for touchdowns so far for Wenicky. Jason Schneider still leading the receiver core with 14 catches, 3 of those for touchdowns. I got to go with one of the fat guys, Jacob Onasorgi, a redshirt freshman who has stepped in at center on that offensive line and been very solid with a lot of those young guys there. What about on defense?
On defense, it's tough because when you look at the stat line, there isn't anybody that just sticks out with some crazy numbers. What you have is a very consistent group who are doing their jobs and making plays when their numbers are called. But for me, it's TJ Lally, the leader of this group, the linebacker in the middle. We knew he had to be the guy coming into this one to get all those young guys on the same page. And it appears as if, so far, early on this season, he's done just that.
All right, I got 2 guys. Nick Mears is one of them at free safety. Wasn't sure last year if he was going to make it, but he has improved a lot in coverage and in tackling. Right now, he's 3rd on the team in tackles. And Kellen Sulik on the defensive line, redshirt freshman from Freeman, South Dakota, leads the team in sacks and tackles for loss right now. Those guys looking good as we go forward here. Check us out on YouTube and on Twitter. We'll see you next week. It is the Jackrabbits at Illinois State on Saturday. You're still feeling good?
Feeling great.
See you next week.